Hi everyone, I'm Wei, a PhD student from Monash University. I'm so happy to present our study in front of you. The topic of our study is measuring inconsistency in written feedback. Here is the overall structure of the presentation. Now let's start with the introduction. Feedback is a crucial part of communication between students and teachers in terms of clarifying expectations, monitoring the current progress of students, and reflecting on the trajectory towards desired learning goals. More importantly, it can promote a learner's self-monitoring and help students develop self-regulation. Indeed, quality feedback can be a significant lever to enhance learning experience and success. However, the quality of feedback can be inconsistent across different groups of students. For example, would it be possible that minority ethnic students are less likely to receive quality feedback than their counterparts? This was actually investigated in a work where they observed that the attainment gap between students from different ethnic groups could be potentially attributed to inconsistent feedback. So, measuring feedback inconsistency becomes critical to improve feedback effectiveness and student success. Unfortunately, there is still a dearth of studies that explored whether there exists any inconsistency in the feedback, which motivates us to fill this gap by asking the question: does, and if so, to what extent teacher feedback for students differ by students' gender and first language backgrounds? Specifically, we were interested in examining feedback inconsistency from the perspective of politeness, which has been documented to be effective in improving students' learning performance. Politeness may arguably also affect the teacher's relationship with the student, which contributes to the effectiveness of learner-centered feedback. In addition, we focused on two demographic attributes, which are gender and first language backgrounds. Both of them have been demonstrated to be related to students' attainment gap. To answer this question, we collected instructor written feedback given to 3,249 students for their assessment tasks in 35 courses in the subject of information technology, which leads to over 9,000 submissions. And each submission contains feedback and mark for one specific assignment given to one specific student. This study adopted a state-of-the-art tool to measure feedback politeness. Specifically, this tool was proposed to couple a bi-directional LSTM with a convolutional layer to capture not only the long-distance relationship in input text, but also the linguistic features that are important for describing the text politeness. Given the nested nature of our data, which is assignment submissions made by students in different courses, we decided to adopt a multi-level regression model to investigate whether there existed any feedback inconsistency. Compared to ordinary regression, multi-level regression models can accurately measure how nested data structure affects the measurements of interest, and subsequently provide better estimates to answer both simple and complex questions. In step 1, we calculated all the politeness scores of the feedback used in our study. The distribution is depicted in Figure 1a. As we can see, most of the feedback was rather direct. Over 88% of them were with politeness score less than 0.08. The data is skewed. To better work with skewed data for predictive modeling, we applied a logarithm transformation to the politeness scores before serving them as inputs to the multi-level regression models. Before measuring feedback inconsistency, we verified the hierarchical structure in our dataset. We first constructed a linear regression model by fitting it on the longitudinal assessment data, which was then compared to the 2-level and 3-level models, where the second-level variable was the students and the third level was the courses in which the students enrolled. The nested 3-level model is depicted in Figure 2. Based on the variance change, we can easily conclude that the 3-level model fitted the data best, which provides strong evidence for the hierarchical nature of the data. And more importantly, the examination of the effect of students' demographic attributes on feedback politeness should be based on this 3-level regression model. So we incorporated students' demographic attributes into the 3-level model described above to explore whether and to what extent instructors' politeness displayed in their written feedback were dependent on students' demographic attributes. Here is the summary of our models. Model A was solely built on students' longitudinal assessment order without considering their assessment performance or demographic attributes. As pointed out by previous studies, students' learning performance might influence their subsequent interactions with instructors. We posit that instructors' feedback politeness might be dependent on the performance of a student on an assignment. Therefore, we included the mark of an assignment for regression modeling, which leads to Model B. Based on Model B, we separately add gender and first language into the second level, which contributes to Model C and D. By scrutinizing Model A, we found that feedback politeness tended to increase throughout the running of a course. Furthermore, the results of Model B demonstrated that the politeness level of feedback was positively correlated with the student's assessment performance. That is, the higher mark an assignment submission earned, the more polite feedback it received. This implies that there existed a significant gap between high-performing and low-performing students with respect to the politeness of feedback they received. When scrutinizing the results of Model C, we didn't observe any significant results. Also, there were no significant interactions between students, gender, and their assessment performance throughout a course. However, in Model D, there was significant difference between students of different first language backgrounds. Generally, English as second language students were more likely to receive polite feedback than their English as first language counterparts. This was probably because that instructors might have considered the potential impact of language barriers on performance and thus try to support English as second language students with more polite and encouraging feedback. English as second language students with good assessment performance tended to receive less polite feedback from instructors. On the other hand, throughout the running of a course, English as second language students were likely to receive less and less polite feedback. This showed that feedback inconsistency manifested itself not only among students of different first language backgrounds, but also among students of the same first language background, but with different assessment performance or at different times. In summary, this study applied multi-level regression modeling to measure feedback inconsistency in the form of varying politeness levels displayed to students of different demographic attributes. Overall, our observations suggest that inconsistency in feedback politeness occurs across student groups of different assessment performance, different first language backgrounds, and different periods in the running of a course. That's all for my sharing. Thank you so much for listening.